The fireworks are not over, Syracuse football fans. The Orange has landed one of its biggest commitments in a very long time. Calvin Russell III of Miami Northwestern High School, 5-star recruit, top 50 national recruit, has committed to Syracuse football. Welcome to this live edition of Syracuse Sports. You've got Brent X, you've got Javon Edmonds here. Javon, we've been tracking it. We have heard that Fran Brown has been very involved in this, has established a strong relationship with Calvin Russell. It was LSU, then it was Michigan, then it was down to Syracuse, Florida State, Oregon, in Michigan. The last 24 hours, it seemed to be Michigan and Syracuse. The announcement was supposed to come at 9 o'clock Eastern time. It didn't come until about 10 o'clock Eastern time. What was going on? The drama, what's happening? But at the end of the day, Calvin Russell III becomes Syracuse's first 5-star commitment since 2001. An incredible night for Syracuse football here in 4th of July weekend. And by the way, happy birthday to Calvin as he made his commitment on his 18th birthday.
So said first 5-star since 2001.
That's right.
I was born October 13th of 2001. So there's some perspective for you.
Right there on the screen. Javon represents the last time they got a 5-star. By the way, that was Johnny Morant, wide receiver, and the year before that, 5-star quarterback Cecil Howard. Those are Syracuse's last 2 5-star commitments.
Yeah, so this is why you recruit all those Florida kids if you're Fran and the staff, because when you're good at a sport, you know everyone else that's good at your sport from your area. And that certainly was the case with this roster. And Darius Johnson happened to be very close with Calvin Russell. He was there in attendance for the commitment tonight in the birthday party. And his stream actually worked better than Calvin's. So this is why you know how impressive it is in today's day and age to beat Michigan for a 5-star player without getting him up on an official visit. Like, I know he got him up a few times on a bunch of unofficials, but still, that is impressive. I just talked to Robert Carpenter and Robert Drummond about it days earlier. I will admit I was skeptical. And then as the week went along, I started seeing how close Darius Johnson is to Calvin Russell. And then a few minutes before they went live, I saw that Calvin and Fran are represented by the same agency. So
if that isn't a modern representation of college football and the discussions we have these days, I don't know what is.
Yeah. So once I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, they might actually do this. And it happened. And you know what? The Syracuse crowd is going to be just on a natural high for the next week. And I'm going to be honest, all of my Temple family back in Philly is going to be pissed for the week. This is just more ammunition of fire Arthur Johnson, should have hired Fran Brown years ago. That is going to be the conversation on Temple Twitter. So Fran, hats off to you, my friend. Way to prove everyone who swore you weren't ready to be a head coach wrong.
It's been a natural progression for Fran Brown, who made an instant impact in recruiting. As soon as he came in, he's hired in early December. That class, just 3 weeks later, was one of Syracuse's highest rated classes in recent memory. Made some instant impacts in that class. Then when he had a year to settle in, and of course the transfer portal is a huge factor in college football these days, and bringing in Kyle McCord and Jackson Meeks and all the players that Syracuse brought on the portal and how impressive that was. But all along, Javon, we have seen a commitment from Fran Brown in recruiting. You look at the class of 2026, this is now the 26th commitment in that class, and Fran has said all along they are still going to recruit. Now, we just heard from Syracuse Athletic Director John Wildhack the other day in an extensive interview with our Chris Carlson, which if you haven't, I would encourage you to check out Chris's story on that. We did a pod on it as well last week. You can check that on the Syracuse Sports feed as well. And one thing that Wild Hack said is they're going to stick with 85 scholarships, right? You can now go up to 105 scholarships, but for now, Syracuse sticks with that. So even in the era where you can pay players, name, image, and likeness in the transfer portal, good old-fashioned recruiting still matters. You mentioned the connections in Florida. All we heard from so many experts and people that were close to the situation, and I think Calvin did a great job kind of keeping it close to the vest until right down the stretch here, was that Fran Brown and the connection that Fran had to Calvin, even without the official visit, as you noted there, Javon, was strong enough to get Syracuse over the finish line. Now, we should reiterate here, this is a verbal commitment. Syracuse has to use that term again, get this over the finish line on signing day. Michigan and those other schools are going to stay in contact. They're going to continue to pursue Calvin Russell the third. He might say he's done. This is it. I'm out. And he signs on the dotted line. It's as simple as that. But let's just keep that in mind. It is a verbal commitment. It is not binding. But this is as big of a splash as you can get. It's Fran Brown's biggest recruit, known as a recruiter. We mentioned the first 5-star recruit that Syracuse has had since 2001. And that progression, Javon, we've seen Syracuse appear on so many of these top 5 lists, right? With big name schools. You name the big name in college football, and Syracuse has been on lists with them. Michigan, Alabama, Florida State, Florida, Ohio State. Go through them all, right? And Syracuse got this guy. So one 5-star could lead to the next. You mentioned Darius Johnson's connection here. Went to Miami Northwestern with Calvin Russell, right? You need those connections. I'm sure there's some NIL money that will be discussed and all the things that happen in college football these days. But this is as big of a score as Syracuse football has had in recent memory. And it comes down to, even through all the modern amenities, Javon, traditional on-the-ground recruiting.
So it's funny because our story of the spring was like, is Syracuse going to go out to Boulder for their spring game? Is Fran going to be able to coach against his idol? And like, you see Fran in his own way, like trying to be the Deion, the Coach Prime at least, of the East Coast. But then you say to yourself, like, they're kind of opposite, because Deion does not recruit high schoolers. Colorado's like bottom 90s in the country right now in their class of 2026 recruitment. All of it is the portal. And Fran is still like, no, we're going to do both. Like, I've got to get guys that are homegrown, and then I've got to go to the portal to fill in the gaps, because your culture and your identity and your tradition is going to come from your homegrown guys, your guys that you're recruiting out of high school. Some of your veteran leadership and some of your, timely production, I'll call it, comes from the portal. But when it comes to building your program, you still got to come and get your guys out of high school. And, 2 schools I've seen, having their kids pursued a lot this summer: Bergen Catholic over in Oradell, New Jersey, and Northwestern down in Miami. And Fran is heavily tapped into both of them. It helps that he's got Florida kids on his roster to help with the Miami Northwestern Cats. And it helps that he's got Bergen's head coach's brother as his quarterback's coach on his staff. So
that helps a little. Yeah.
Fran as a recruiter, like, it's who he is. It's who he's been for a long time. I say it all the time. I said it Monday, like, Matt Rule owes a great debt to Fran Brown, because without Fran Brown, Temple never becomes, the leading group of 5 school when it comes to their former players going to the NFL. And now he's got a bigger stage to do that in the ACC at Syracuse. And that brother's delivering on his promises. This is, one thing about sports is how you overcome adversity. You lose Messiah Hampton to Oregon, mainly because Ross Douglas left to go to Oregon, and you bounce back by getting the number 2 receiver in the country. That's how you respond to adversity. So there is not, I don't think there's a negative thing you're going to be able to say about Fran Brown this offseason. Hats off to him. He went down to Florida and got his guys. You got Cameron Wilson, got Calvin Russell. Then he's got another 4-star in Amari Guff that's coming up in the class of 26. So great offseason for Fran Brown.
That's a great point because Messiah Hampton's the #1 recruit in the state of New York, and you always want to keep those guys close to home. Relationships matter. You mentioned former Syracuse wide receiver coach Ross Douglas goes to Oregon. Messiah Hampton flat out told you went out to Rochester and covered his commitment that had Ross Douglas stayed at Syracuse, he'd be at Syracuse, right? So it shows you those relationships, but the recovery, right? Recruiting never stops. You miss out on that guy, you stay on the next one. And we'll see how their careers turn out. But if you just look at the rankings and the impact right now, Calvin Russell is clearly the bigger recruit. It would have been huge for Syracuse to get the top guy in New York State. And Messiah Hampton is a very talented wide receiver prospect.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. Russell, let's just look at the numbers here a little bit, Javon. 6'5", 195, already a big target. Just turned 18 years old today, as we mentioned. The 247 composite ranks him as the 5th best receiver in the country, the 4th best prospect in the state of Florida overall, and number 47 in the country, period, at any position, which shows you the huge impact of landing a player like this. I mentioned he's Syracuse's first 5-star since 2001. Cecil Howard in 2000, Johnny Morant in 2001. Johnny Morant, who had a terrific career at Syracuse. Cecil Howard, who did not. He never ended up at Syracuse, and that's a whole other story for a different time. But 5 stars, 4 stars, just look at the talent. I watch this kid, Javon, and I see it's interesting. I see a little bit, it's different position, of course, but I see an Oronde Gadsden type of player. Lengthy, covers a lot of ground. And when I was certainly have watched a bunch of film of him over the past couple of weeks when Syracuse got serious with this kid and we were closing down on today's commitment date. OG jumps out to me as a comparison. I don't know if you have one or two. Certainly our viewers and our pod listeners and our Syracuse Sports Insiders, we're going to get some reaction for them. He might remind them of somebody, but he is a talented player. And it speaks to Syracuse's quarterback situation too, Javon, because you have Ricky Collins Jr., the LSU transfer, and Notre Dame transfer Steve Angeli, who are going to compete for the job in training camp. We'll see who wins that job. Most people project Angeli's probably going to win, but we'll see. He brought in 2 high-level prospects. Ricky's around for, in theory, it's always the transfer portal knocking on the door the next 3 years, Angeli the next 2 years, what Syracuse is trying to do in recruiting at the quarterback position as well. There was a lot of rumbles out there. Look, Russell had a great visit to Michigan. They've got Bryce Underwood at Michigan, the #1 quarterback prospect in the country. Michigan has been knocking it out of the park lately in recruiting. Michigan always recruits well, but they have just been every time I look at my Twitter feed, they sign another 4 or 5-star player, right? So it shows Russell's commitment in this staff, in Coach Nixon, in Coach Nunzio Campanelli, who you mentioned earlier, to build around him, incorporate him into the offense. And Javon, a freshman, a true recruit, the wonder kid who's going to be on the field on both sides this year, Demetrius Samuel Jr. I'm going to show the picture here on the screen. So he tweeted this, "See you soon." And that's Calvin Russell's Twitter handle there, and a picture of Fran Brown showing off some bling there. So think of Samuel, think of Russell, think of these impact players who you can say you can compete right away to get on the field and mean it, and you'll shine brighter at a place like Syracuse. And I got to show this one too. Javon told me about this. There's our guy, Tommy Caparelli, Syracuse, the Florida guy. Now, you want to talk about somebody who has opened a lot of doors into Florida that maybe weren't quite as wide open. You're looking at him on the screen here if you're watching on YouTube. That's Tommy Caparelli, who is now Syracuse's general manager, has been in recruiting and on Fran Brown's staff the past couple of years. That is a guy right there that has opened up a lot of doors to land a player the caliber of Calvin Russell.
I get the feeling Tommy's going to be busy this week also. So they're trying to flip Xavier Payne from Florida State on Monday. We'll see how that goes. Brent, I've got a good one for you. There's another kid from Florida State, 4-star, that Syracuse is trying to flip right now that was in attendance at Calvin Russell's birthday party.
Okay.
That would be Tadarius Hughes.
Okay. Intriguing.
So relationships mean everything.
Yes, they do.
That's Syracuse's window right there.
And players recruit players, right? I mean, Fran Brown and the coaching staff.
This era.
Yeah.
One thing I will give LeBron James credit for, and I don't give him much credit, especially when it comes to influence. He did influence the players recruiting players thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this generation of kids, LeBron is the guy. that they know. So lean on that. Like, hey, Tadarius, you're cool with him. He knows some cats on our team. I'm sure you do too. We want you. Keep us in mind. That's going to be the message to Tadarius Hughes if you're Tommy Camporelli, if you're Fran Brown. So that one opens up for me again for these next 2 weeks. I will be chasing that one down because that is a very interesting nugget. One other thing that showed me today that Russell to Syracuse had some real legs to it. So when I saw Michigan took a 4-star receiver today, I'm like, okay. Doesn't mean much because guys always, like, schools want to have 2-3 guys at each position commit in a class. But it's like, okay, a few hours before, it does have an impact. That does mean something sometimes. Like, hey, maybe they got that phone call today of, we're not going to get this guy. So
these kids are smart. They ask good questions. They know what their role is going to be. Yeah, exactly.
So today is flat out a win for Fran Brown. And also give Red Autry some credit because Calvin Russell wants to play basketball also.
It's a great
His
point.
mom is a legend down at Miami. And it came down to Michigan and Syracuse simply because both football staffs wanted him, but also both basketball staffs wanted him. Red wanted him, and Dusty May's been recruiting him since he was at Florida Atlantic. That is I can't put enough emphasis on how much of a win this is for Syracuse. You showed you could hang with the big boys today.
It's a major win because you weren't just on the list. Now you could say we recruited him, we had the relationship, and he committed to Syracuse. Now, again, you got to get him over the finish line and get him to sign because this is only a verbal commitment. But to now be able to go out there and say, we got that guy. Think of all the heads that are turning in Miami right now. All the ACC coaches out that are like, man, Syracuse got that guy. Michigan. You've got Sherrod Moore at Michigan now saying, we just lost a guy to Syracuse. When's the last time they can say that? Like since Mike Hart back in the day. Give you an old school shout out on Syracuse legend Mike Hart, who played running back at Michigan. It was terrific, right? A major win there because you got him over the finish line. You weren't just on a top 3 list. You mentioned Xavier Payne a moment ago. Syracuse and Colorado are the 2 on his list, right? Think of the momentum of an offensive lineman who, by the way, is 6'7", 320 as a prospect, and he's in Florida now. He's got some upstate New York roots. He'll want to block for a Calvin Russell on the offensive line, be a part of this offense. How many other players around there are texting each other right now and looking around saying, I told you, man, I told you, Fran Brown, he can do it. And the momentum that will build from this guy, which was already there, Javon, right? I mean, if we could be a little greedy here in a short period of time, because things move fast in college sports these days, Fran Brown's gotten on a lot of radars that Syracuse has not been. And he's landed a lot of quality players, some of which have already gotten on the field and will get on the field, as we saw in spring ball with Demetrius Samuel Jr. as one example. But the momentum surge that will come from this by being able to firmly say, you got a 5-star player from Miami and beat out those schools for him. It's not about potential anymore. It's not about what could be. It's about you did it. And now it's just adding to that list. That basketball thing, too, is intriguing. And guys, Calvin Russell can ball. He is a great basketball player. And I love the old school feel of this, that he wants to at least try to play both sports at Syracuse, that both staffs were on board with this, and that we're going to see at least potentially, we'll see how it goes here, a 2-way player. I'm thinking of Mike Williams when he played basketball at Syracuse. The most famous example, of course, is Donovan McNabb in the 1996 Final Four run for Syracuse. There's been other 2-star athletes that have played a couple of different sports. Charlie Lockwood, notably, a local Syracuse product, who was a huge lacrosse star at Syracuse, a 22 national champion, the whole bit. So I love the old school feel of that, too, that Calvin Russell says, I want to play a little hoops, too. And, Javon, you mentioned something. Man, Miami, for so long, you wondered what their place would be in this. You mentioned his mother was a Hall of Fame basketball player at Miami. His father went to Miami. legacy, backyard. What would that mean? Would he want to get away from that, or would Miami have an advantage? You always wonder about that. And certainly we saw the result of that. They kind of faded out here at the end, and it was down to Syracuse, Florida State, Michigan, and Oregon, and Syracuse wins out. So that's interesting that he didn't want to continue the legacy. He wants to forge his own identity somewhere else.
So I remember a few years back, I started having questions about Billy Napier and the Florida staff because Temple had got a few guys that transferred in. And when I talked to them, just heard nothing good about Napier. And the Gators have not been the Gators since. History is repeating itself now with Mario Cristobal. And my dad's a Miami fan, like a lot of Baltimoreans of his generation, because our beloved Ravens do not have 2 Super Bowls without the University of Miami. That's simple. Ed Reed and Ray Lewis are the franchise, and they are Hurricanes, right? And I'm getting concerned about the Hurricanes because I'll tell you something I heard on Messiah Hampton. Mario Cristobal didn't call Messiah Hampton, like literally had not spoken to the kid until the night before he announced his commitment. And Messiah Hampton has family down there on his mom's side. Like if Mario Cristobal played his cards right, because Messiah loved that coaching staff down there. Had Cristobal just made some type of an effort, the Hurricanes had a real shot at beating Syracuse and Oregon out for Hampton. And it didn't happen. Then you got this right here with Russell where, this is a legacy kid. He plays in your city. And, from what I've heard about you with other recruits, like you didn't get him, it raises a red flag. So the same questions I had about Florida a few years ago, which have turned out to be valid questions, I'm beginning to get them about Miami. Like dating all the way back to Cristobal's first year against Georgia Tech, when all they had to do was take a knee, and they decided to run power dive with Damian Martinez, fumble and lose the game, to what I'm hearing about them on the recruiting trail. It's looking rough. So now Fran Brown can really look around and say, hey, it might be me and Clemson in this conference. Because I can tell you, one thing I know about Fran Brown, he's not going to let Duke be better than Syracuse during his tenure. He is not going to let Manny Diaz have a better resume than him in the ACC. So that's not going to happen. SMU has money now, so I'll throw them in that conversation. But Fran Brown can look around and say, at Media Day this month, Mike Norvell, I just took a kid right from under your nose. I'm looking to take some more. Actually, I've taken a few from under your nose, and I'm looking to take some more. Clemson, SMU, y'all have money, but I'm coming. Very positive.
And he can prove it now. It's not idle trash talk. It's not here I come, I'm going to do it. He has done it. Now it's one guy, right? But you needed that one guy. You needed the pillar. You needed the foundation to say, all these other players are great. 3 stars, 4 stars, whatever you want to rate them. But Javon, I'm just thinking of the feeling that Syracuse fans have right now. It's been 25 years since they've had a 5-star commit, right? There's just a certain feeling that goes with that, the pride that comes with that, the sense that Syracuse can run with anybody. Now, again, it's one guy, but we'll see where the momentum comes from that. And you got to get that one guy that's willing to invest in and believe in. Ultimately, it's a program and it's a lot of things, but it's the coach, right? And it's Fran Brown that's making the phone calls, that's talking to the family, is it money? Is it playing time? Is it a little bit of everything? Syracuse has the credibility of a 10-win season last year, not shying away from the tough schedule they're going to play this year. You needed that one guy that you could say, we got him. Not we almost got him, or we were in on him, or we should have got him. We got him. So you can see it on your screen if you're watching on YouTube. Our Syracuse Sports Insiders were certainly waiting around anxiously all day, Javon. Not only Calvin Russell, but earlier Saturday evening, Julius Miles, a talented tight end prospect, actually chose Louisville over Syracuse and Florida State. So a couple of big commitments here. Even in the middle of July, recruiting never stops. The Syracuse sports news never stops. And being a Syracuse Sports Insider means you get that news sent directly to you, and you can text me directly anytime. Your thoughts, your questions, your opinions, your analysis. You just want to shoot the breeze and talk SU sports. That's what our Syracuse Sports Insider text line is for. It's right there on your screen, but you can hit us up at joinsubtext.com/Syracuse Sports to have direct text message access to me anytime. And a lot of people anxiously texting Javon while we were waiting for the announcement. What's going on? And then there was kind of a false start. There were some reports earlier in the 9 o'clock Eastern time hour.
Can I adjust that real quick?
Turned out to be right, but just we're a little premature before Russell wanted to make his.
No, we're not giving them that credit. No. Stop doing this with these kids. Like, their commitment to their college is a big deal. Stop pestering them. Stop annoying them. Stop with the false reporting and the parody accounts of it. It is annoying to everyone. Cut it out. I've seen so much of it this week, and all I can say is, like, these are still high school kids who do not have the control over their emotions as that you would expect the fan base to have, right? The alumni portion, I would say. Like, you can steer a kid away from annoying him that much. So when it costs your school that one of these days, and this goes for any fan of any school, don't be mad about it. It is annoying to the umpteenth degree. So
life on social media.
Calvin Russell had to take to Twitter today to let it be known he was fed up. Like, I have not committed anywhere. Yes, I'm running on CP time instead of Eastern Standard Time, but I am going to go live and I am going to announce. Just relax.
Life on social media these days, my friends. Not a surprise in the least, but I mentioned those insiders, Javon, and like most of what I'm reading right now, I'm doing this on the fly. My apologies to our insiders. I can't put your text on the screen. We wanted to get live as soon as possible here, but I'm going through our Syracuse Sports Insider text line, and let's just say there's a lot of exclamation points in here, a lot of happy fans, as you can imagine, but I want to give a shout out here as they're reacting to the news as it's coming in here within the hour. And Javon and I got on it live as soon as we could here from Steve N, who just says, this is really great news. The challenge now will be retaining him until signing day, but believes Fran Brown can do it. Michael S says, keep in mind, this is a 5-star receiver who chose Syracuse despite having an undecided quarterback room. It says a ton about Fran Brown and the coaching staff. Our friend Rock and Ron, as you can imagine, is a very happy guy right down there in Florida tonight. Paul L says, I've got to admit this was unexpected. I thought the allure of the Big Ten and SEC's massive stadiums and money would prevail, but Syracuse prevailed. James says, huge to get Russell. Fingers crossed he stays committed. We have one of the hottest young coaches in college football right now, and it's so exciting. Neil's just mind-boggled by the whole thing, but said the kid must be sold, that they've got a good enough quarterback play and offense to get him the ball. Just like I said, a lot of exclamation points, people celebrating here. Can't believe it that Syracuse landed their first 5-star in a long time. A lot of all caps. Are you kidding me? Wow. Frank F says, what a get for Coach Fran. Got to keep on him. They can flip at any time. So some fans, wondering if they're going to seal the deal on this one, and all indications are they can. Few people in here, Javon, saying, give Fran that extension. We had that great pod discussion about that recently, about whether Syracuse should invest in an investment for Fran Brown, something that John Wildhack was asked about recently, and it didn't make any commitment one way or the other here. So shout out to our Syracuse Sports Insiders. We'll have more from you guys to come here on pods in the future, but really appreciate your questions, your insight, and your curiosity through this whole thing. We would love for you to join the party, friends. It's only $3.99 a month to be a Syracuse Sports Insider, but you can try it free 2 weeks for absolutely free. Send me a text anytime, any questions, comments, opinions on Syracuse sports, and you get everything first from me, and many times exclusive from me as well. So we'd love for you to hop on board, and your voice gets heard exclusively on this pod, by the way. We don't take any comments from social media or anywhere else. Only insiders get heard here on the Syracuse Sports Pod.
So I've got 2 more points I want to bring up before we wrap this thing up. You brought up the scholarship limit, which was something no one needs 105 players on their roster.
They don't.
You don't. Seriously, I encourage everyone, and I'm not trying to put money in EA Sports pockets because that company's pissed me off enough in my gaming career. But I would encourage everyone to play the Dynasty mode on there just 1 year. And you will see, you do not need 105 players on a college roster. Like 85 is enough. As much as Fran might want to go over it every now and then, I think Wild Hack is right in keeping the scholarship limit at 85. And it's also for this reason here. With NIL and revenue sharing, more players means less money to be paid to your star players. You stay at 85.
That's right.
20 fewer players and a bigger cut of money you can divvy out to your good guys. So, like, something like that is going to mean something in recruitment coming down the line. Like, that coaching staffs are going to use that when they do their little financial part of recruitment. It's going to be, hey, they've got 105 on their roster. It's much harder to pay 105 players than it is to play 85 players. Play and pay 105 versus.
That's the key, because 85 to 105, let's face it, you're getting far down on not even the depth chart, just the roster. Exactly. And they're prime candidates to hit the portal. And
yeah,
but you said it. If Fran feels like, hey, John, I need 5 more scholarships, it's not like they're not going to give it to him. They'll find a way to make that happen. But you made a great point, Javon. Chris Carlson has said this too. That's more money that you're paying your big time guys, right? Jimmy Johnson always talked about how I didn't treat Troy Aikman the same way that I treated the 53rd guy on the roster. You need money for the Calvin Russells, for the big time transfers, for when you got to throw the money on the table and land the big guys. You're not doing it with the 85th guy on the roster. So I agree with you. I think it'd be a good point on that.
So that's number one. Number two, the last like congratulatory Fran thing I will say tonight. So speaking to a mutual friend of ours last week, who's been with Fran for a long time, fellow Temple grad like myself, and we're talking, and he brings up the Fran Manny situation and the coaching cycle after that. He's like, I'll tell you where everybody messed up with Fran. The second time around, Temple hired Stan Drayton from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And Stan Drayton's selling point was he got Zeke Elliott, Curtis Samuel, and Terry McLaurin to Ohio State. And then that voted running backs from that Tom Herman had with Bijan Robinson and Roshan, all those guys down there in Texas were all him too, apparently. That was his selling point. And the guys talking to me, he's like, that's where they messed up. I've been recruiting for 12 years since I graduated college, right? He says, those schools recruit them for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
No coach brings any special sauce. Hate to break it to you. You're at those schools, your job is to just not mess it up. He said, what me, Jeff, Elijah, Fran, and Matt have had to do throughout our careers, that's real recruiting.
Yeah.
And that is where Temple messed up. When you have a conversation like that, where it's this guy supposedly got these big names to go to Ohio State and Texas, and this guy had Baylor winning a Big 12 football championship, and Temple sending guys to the NFL, and Rutgers sending guys to the NFL, and then once he finally got to Georgia, Kirby Smart owes a lot of that ring to him. That's the guy you go with, and that showed today. So I did want to get that out there. Like, there is a Syracuse, respectfully, does not recruit itself in football.
You're
going to get a five-star football player to Syracuse, you have to recruit him. Michigan will recruit Calvin Russell itself. It doesn't matter if it's Sharon Moore or if it's Jim Harbaugh. Michigan will recruit Calvin Russell itself. Fran Brown has to recruit Calvin Russell. So I would keep that in mind when you're evaluating, just how significant tonight's commitment was.
And it is Fran Brown who is doing it. You are recruiting him to Syracuse and all that comes with it. But at the end of the day, it was his relationship with Calvin Russell that really seemed to get this over the finish line, and what he could do and how he could flourish at Syracuse in a number of ways. But that relationship that the head coach himself, not that the other coaches and all the recruiting efforts and everybody else doesn't matter. They do. We showed the picture of Tommy Caparelli earlier and the effort that goes into it. But when you've got a head coach that wants you that bad, that's all that matters in this. And Syracuse now has a head coach that can run with anybody in recruiting in college football. That is massive. So, Javon, let the 4th of July celebrations continue. If you're a Syracuse fan out there, maybe a held back some fireworks, you might want to, I'm not encouraging you to light off fireworks, depending on where you are this late at night. But hey, continue the celebration any way you want. A major score for Syracuse football, one of its biggest recruits, certainly one of the biggest in the modern era in recent memory. Its first 5-star in 25 years. And what's next? That's the thing, Javon. With Fran Brown, there's always something to come. He has proven that time and again here, but this is pretty big. A 5-star commitment, Calvin Russell III, Miami Northwestern High School, 5-star prospect, top 50 player in the country, has verbally committed to Syracuse football. We're going to have much more to come on this. Please check out Javon's stories on syracuse.com. All of stuff coming as well on this. Thanks for hanging on the pod tonight. We would encourage you to subscribe to Syracuse Sports on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We do live pods like this and react to breaking news all the time, and do our regularly scheduled Syracuse Sports pods as well. We would love for you to become a Syracuse Sports Insider as well. More to come with them, and you can text me anytime when it comes to Syracuse Sports. Javon, thanks for your great work on not only this story, but everything we've been writing about and tracking about lately as football never stops. Training camp will be here before you know it too, kids, and we'll be all over that for you here on the Syracuse Sports Pod and the Syracuse Sports Insider text line. Let's wrap it up for tonight, but thank you for hanging tonight. And Syracuse fans, you got a big one. Let that 4th of July celebration continue as Calvin Russell commits to Syracuse. For Javon Edmonds, I'm Brent Dax. Thanks for watching this live edition of Syracuse Sports. We'll catch you next time, guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.